In the calm of an ordinary afternoon, the kind where even the breeze seems polite and the only sound is distant birdsong, something shattered the peace. In an instant, the deep, rolling growl of Harley engines cut through that quiet, and four black-leathered figures rode in like thunder incarnate. Their vests bore a silver wolf emblem. They called themselves the Iron Wolves. Leading them was Cole Ryder Mason, followed by his brothers Tank, Viper, and Ghost, each one a living echo of steel and shadow. Curtains snap shut in windows. Hearts pound in hidden rooms. Then, above the engine roar, came the softest voice imaginable. "Sir, will you buy my bike?" The sound was fragile, trembling, a child's plea. The bikers swiveled, stunned to see a little girl no more than 6, standing beside a pink bicycle with a cardboard sign reading, "For sale." Her shoes were worn, her hair in disarray, her posture trembling though her spirit held its ground. Cole killed his engine and stepped forward slowly, struck by something he hadn't felt in years. He kneeled before her and asked, voice steady despite the storm, "Why are you selling your bike, kiddo?" The girl's lip quivered. "Because Mommy hasn't eaten in 2 days." Behind her, under an old oak, sat a gaunt figure wrapped in a blanket, Grace, her mother, weak and quiet from hunger. The men looked at one another, silent. In that moment, something inside Cole's heart shifted. Before we dive deeper, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. We'd love to hear from you. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you never miss any of our upcoming videos. In the fading warmth of the afternoon, Cole and his brothers sat along the curb, their engines now silent, their presence softer, almost reverent. Before them, little Lila clutched her pink bicycle, the cardboard sign still fluttering with the last of the breeze. Her voice was small, fragile, but steady enough to paint a story that none of the hardened men were prepared to hear. She told them about her mother, Grace, once full of laughter, always baking, always humming while she worked at a catering company called Dalton Foods. The name rang hollow now. Dalton Foods was owned by a man named Mr. Bradley Dalton, a face everyone in the county knew, handsome, charming, the kind of man who smiled for every camera and shook every hand as if it were a performance. His grin was on magazines, his voice on local commercials, his words sugar-coated with the language of success and generosity. But behind closed doors, Lila said, he was different. He was the kind of man who smiled while breaking people's lives apart. Grace had been one of his best workers, known for showing up early and leaving late, for covering shifts when others called in sick. But one day, the company announced it was downsizing. Grace begged to keep her job. She told Mr. Dalton about her daughter, about how she was willing to take half pay until she could find something else. He didn't even look up from his phone. He told her she was replaceable. That word, replaceable, echoed through her mind long after she left his office. The next day, her badge didn't work at the door. Her emails went unanswered. The world had moved on. Cole's eyes hardened as Lila spoke. He had seen this story before, not in words, but in the broken faces of people the world forgot. He remembered the day he lost his own family, the way the system chewed people up and left them to rot. Tank exhaled sharply, rubbing his face. "That's messed up, brother. That ain't right." Viper nodded quietly, eyes fixed on the little girl's trembling hands. The street was silent except for the hum of distant traffic. Cole didn't say a word at first. He just reached into his jacket, pulled out his worn leather wallet, and took out a thick wad of cash. He placed it gently in Lila's hand. Her fingers trembled, the bills almost too heavy for her tiny grasp. "Keep your bike," he said softly. "You already paid in love." Grace covered her mouth as tears streamed down her face. She wanted to speak, to say thank you. But Cole stopped her with a quiet shake of his head. "You don't owe us thanks," he said. "You just keep going." For a long moment, the only sound was the rustle of leaves overhead and the faint rattle of the pink bike's training wheels in the wind. But inside Cole's chest, something deep and long suppressed stirred. He turned to look at the house across the street, Broken shutters, cracked paint, the kind of home forgotten by everyone but the people inside it. Then he looked back at Grace and Lila. "You said his name was Bradley Dalton?" Grace nodded faintly. Cole's expression darkened, his jaw clenching as if every memory of injustice had just found a name. He rose slowly, slipping his gloves back on. The sunlight cut across his face, glinting off the silver wolf on his vest. "We're not done here," he muttered. "That man needs to learn what hunger feels like." Tank stood up immediately, eyes burning. "Say the word, brother." Ghost adjusted his helmet wordlessly. Viper cracked his knuckles. As the sun dipped lower and the first chill of evening swept across the street, the Iron Wolves mounted their engines. The sound of their bikes ignited again. Not chaos this time, but purpose. Neighbors peeked from their windows as the thunder rolled away down the road, toward the city, toward a man who thought he was untouchable. Cole didn't know exactly what justice would look like yet, but he knew one thing. No child should ever have to sell their toy to feed their mother. And by the time the night was over, Bradley Dalton would remember what it meant to take something that wasn't his to take. Night had already swallowed the city when the Iron Wolves finally reached Dalton Foods headquarters, a towering glass monolith, glowing gold against the skyline like a monument to power. The streets were empty, the air heavy with silence, and the sound of their engines echoed like thunder against the marble walls. Inside the lobby, a lone receptionist froze mid-typing as the four bikers walked through the front doors, their boots hitting the polished floor with slow, deliberate rhythm. Security guards moved forward, hesitated, then stepped back. There was something in Cole's eyes that made even trained men think twice. Without a word, they entered the elevator and rode straight to the top. When the doors opened, the air felt different, colder, sharper. Mr. Bradley Dalton's office gleamed with marble, gold frames, and the faint scent of expensive cologne. It was the room of a man who had never known struggle, a man convinced that power could buy anything. Dalton looked up from his desk, startled. "Who are you people?" he demanded. Cole didn't answer right away. He reached into his jacket, pulled out the small, worn piece of cardboard with the words "For sale" scrawled in a child's handwriting, and set it gently on Dalton's polished desk. "That's what your greed cost," he said, his voice calm but edged with something dangerous. Dalton blinked, confused, then scoffed. "If this is about layoffs, it was company policy. Nothing personal. It's just business." Cole stepped closer, the floor creaking under his boots. "There's a mother under a tree starving because of you, and a little girl trying to sell her bike so her mom can eat. You call that business?" His voice was low, controlled, but it carried more weight than any shout. Dalton tried to speak, but the words caught in his throat. For the first time in years, he saw something he'd forgotten existed: moral fire. A reminder that there are still people in this world who will stand up when others look away. Cole leaned close, his gaze steady. "You can't buy forgiveness, but you can do what's right." He turned, leaving the cardboard sign behind like a mirror for the man to face himself. The four brothers walked out as silently as they'd come, the echo of their footsteps carrying more power than any threat. By morning, the city was buzzing. News outlets reported an anonymous donation. Millions in debt cleared, food banks restocked, entire families fed. Dozens of workers at Dalton Foods received calls telling them their jobs were reinstated. No explanation, no press release, just action. Some said the CEO had a sudden change of heart. Others whispered that someone must have forced his hand, but only 4 bikers and a little girl with a pink bicycle knew the truth. That evening, the Iron Wolves returned to the quiet suburban street. The air was soft with the scent of rain and bread baking from a nearby home. As they rolled in, Lila ran out barefoot, holding a small loaf in her hands. "Mommy says thank you," she beamed, eyes shining with joy. Grace stood behind her, looking stronger now, color back in her cheeks. "I don't know what you did," she said, voice trembling. "But you gave us hope again." Cole smiled gently, tipping his head. "Hope doesn't die easy, ma'am. You just needed someone to remind the world." The men sat with them under the same oak tree, breaking bread and sharing quiet laughter as the sun melted into a pink horizon. The glow reflected off Lila's bicycle, now freshly cleaned, its silver bell catching the last light of day. For the first time in years, Cole smiled. Not the guarded smirk of a man who's survived too much, but the genuine smile of someone who's finally at peace. As the screen fades to black, let me ask you this. If you had the power to right a wrong, would you step forward like Cole did, or would you stay silent and hope someone else would? Let us know what you would have done in the comments. And before you go, make sure to hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, and share this story with someone who needs to remember that kindness still exists in this world. Because sometimes, even the smallest act of courage can change everything.